You're listening to Beyond the Dose, the podcast where healing, self-discovery, and transformation intersect. Hosted by Michelle Harrell and brought to you by PurpleCityExperience.com. Each episode explores the power of psychedelics, science, and soul work to help you reconnect with your purpose. It's time to go deeper, beyond the medicine, beyond the noise, beyond the dose.
Hey, everybody. I am Michelle Harrell, and you're listening to Beyond the Dose. Thank you for tuning in. I'm very excited about our conversation today. So just to kind of level set and introduce the topic that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm very happy to have Michelle Orr join me. Michelle is actually a past client. She and her husband, Ron, sought my services out, and they both are part of the VETS organization. And for those who may not know what that is, the VETS Foundation is actually helping to connect veterans and their spouses with safe, clinically driven psychedelic care, mostly in Mexico, but also a little bit here in the United States. And as we all know, veteran suicide rate is much higher. It's 1.5 times higher than the general population. And I did look up a few stats just to kind of get us, started. Actually, in 2022, there were almost 6,500 veteran suicides, and the daily average is over 17 vets per day who commit suicide. And so this is an extremely important topic that is close to my heart and Michelle's. And I'm just really excited to have you join. So I will pause there and let you kind of introduce yourself, maybe tell us a little bit about how you and Ron got connected into the VETS program, and we'll go from there.
Well, my name's Michelle Orr. My husband and I live in Las Vegas currently. The situation with my husband, he's had 3 traumatic brain injuries and suffers from some PTSD, even though he does not like that term. He thinks it's overused in today's society. Everybody has PTSD. So he doesn't really like that designation so much, but the reality is that he has had his fair share over the past 2 years, I would say, of our 9-year marriage. He had a lot of, I would say, maybe impulse control problems, anger, outrages, just overall struggles in a lot of ways that he didn't understand. I didn't understand. Little things would trigger him, set him off. And we kind of came to a critical mass where, honestly, I just got to speak honestly, I'd had enough. I was 1 foot out the door. Just couldn't deal with it anymore. Even though 90%, 95% of our marriage is extremely healthy. It's that 5 to 10% of the time when something happens, some little tiny minor thing sets him completely off. And we just got to a point where I was like, I'm done walking on eggshells. I never know what's going to happen. I can't do this anymore. I'm a Christian, and it was affecting my walk. It was affecting my prayer life. It was affecting my sense of calm. My nervous system was always on edge. And I told him, that's it. I want out. And he immediately jumped in and sought help. Because I wasn't, honestly, I kind of felt it was a little too late. But the things that transpired afterwards with the VETS program, and I want to clarify VETS, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to just say VETS because that's a very broad term that already exists.
True.
But Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, he had a friend hook him up with that. And it was right before all their popularity really exploded. So we were able to get in actually right away. Now, my husband, having some unique issues with multiple brain injuries, was kind of passed forward to a different program that still included the same treatments but had additional things. So he ended up being part of a bigger study, but I went through the VETS program. So he went through, and I went through 5 days after he did. So, game changer.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening, if you have not seen Waves of War on Netflix, I highly recommend it because it does a really excellent job of, portraying the program for Ibogaine, which I work with psilocybin, but there are psilocybin options as well as Ibogaine options for veterans and their spouses through this vets program. And a lot of the vets do start with Ibogaine. And so I also know that you, Michelle, got to participate through the program for the spouses. And you also have participated with Ibogaine. You guys also did some MDMA together. And then, of course, you did the psilocybin with me. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about why the three different modalities and
Right.
maybe the differences that you guys both found through each of those and why you kind of progressively wanted to step through all three of them.
Okay, so first I do want to make a comment about the Waves and War documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful representation, and I can attest to this because that program in that show, in that house, was the exact program, exact people, not necessarily the exact patients, but the
Right.
facilitators there, the exact people. Those are the people we met. Those are the people we worked with. The house, everything, the clinically clean and beautiful. Everybody's responsive. A wonderful program that vets sends you through. It's called Ambio. I think it's technically in Tijuana, Mexico, which that alone could have a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouths. They have an idea of Tijuana, but it's just not the case.
Right. Yeah.
Beautiful,
Right.
beautiful, lovely people, very experienced, very caring. So I would highly recommend if you want to start anywhere, start with that documentary. It's
Yeah.
perfectly representative of what to expect there. As far as Ibogaine, with my husband's, the severity of his issues and getting a little bit worse at this point, that's what was offered to him. And the clinical studies on how it works were just so phenomenal. Everything from drug addiction, alcoholism, impulse control problems, PTSD, trauma, bonded trauma in the brain, whatever, everything. It's just amazing. And we're doing the research, and I had made a comment to my husband as I'm listening on one of the telephone calls, the educational telephone calls that he had with one of the doctors there. And I made a comment to him, God, I wish we could do this together. And lo and behold, I find out that they do encourage the wives to seek treatment too. And it all makes sense because the wife is the number one make it or break it for a injured veteran. You know, it's just the truth. If she's got one foot out the door, she's not going to be any help to you. If anything, your marriage is in trouble, you go get treatment. If she still leaves, there's another set of problems for you. So,
well, and as you mentioned, I know you and Ron are Christian. I am as well. I mean, the wife is the helpmate, right? I mean, that is our role. So I think it makes perfect sense that the wives should also, you have your own trauma in dealing with their trauma. And it's treating the family system as a whole, which I think is beautiful because we don't do enough of that in Western medicine. We like to kind of treat symptoms and not look at the whole picture. And I think that this approach for veterans specifically and their spouses, I think makes a lot of good sense to have both go through their own kind of protocol and then come back and meet in the middle to really heal together.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's critical also to understand that, a lot of the men that become special operations soldiers or, just the Navy SEALs, any of those fields that men go into, they're starting to find out that the PTSD that they come out with isn't necessarily the wartime trauma. It happened in childhood. It happened very young to give them the resiliency they need to be warriors. So they go in with PTSD. They just don't always know it. So they're starting, and this isn't a golden rule, of course, but more often than not, that is the case. And, my husband's no exception. His trauma happened very young. But what I want to also point out is I am guilty of this. My husband, it's not my first marriage. For whatever reason, I seek injured men, big, burly types, special operations, police officers, DEA agents, whatever. That whole world is just attractive to me. So you got to, at some point, stop and ask yourself, what is it about these bad boys, bad boys? And I don't mean that, I mean that anecdotally,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've also learned, I work with a lot of couples, not all of them vets, obviously, but we all trauma bond. That is what we do. And I think it's the nature of also, unfortunately or fortunately, biology, we tend to seek out our partners when we're younger and we haven't done the work on ourselves. And, age brings wisdom, faith brings wisdom. And then if you've, done your work and really tried to heal your own trauma, then you start to be able to recognize patterns in how you ended up with the spouse or the partner that you ended up with. And there is usually, some trauma bonding happening, but you can find your way through it, which is, I think you guys are a great example. And I know, many other couples that have found their way through this process and have healed some of that trauma.
Right. Now, you had asked about the multiple modalities. Each step of the psychedelic journey has its own benefits. Ibogaine, now I can't speak for my husband, what he saw in Ibogaine or what he felt. That's his story to tell. But mine was very different. I wouldn't personally categorize Ibogaine as a psychedelic. It's not anything like you would think a psychedelic is. What it does is it puts you into a lucid dream. So you're well aware that you're in a dream. So there's never anything scary or coming at you real crazy, and you can control it. Like if something's just in your face a little too much, you can just swipe it away or yell at it or tell it to stop or whatever. And you're perfectly aware at all times.
Okay.
And of course, I can't speak for everybody. There's, blackout periods where people are dealing with their trauma, but they don't remember what happened in Ibogaine. I was able to recognize when I came out of the Ibogaine where my trauma was. I was face to face with myself in this dream. And she was playing cards with me. It was a card game. And in that card game, I was forced to tell the truth. And I'd flip the card and, I don't remember what the questions were, but they were silly. They got progressively harder. But the questions were like, did you steal that bubble gum when you were in first grade? Yes, that kind of thing. And it got progressively harder till we get to the last card, and
more
I'm
meaningful.
like, yeah, but I didn't know how to answer it. And then all of a sudden the vision goes away and I get some other visions, and they're kind of silly ones, and it's lighthearted and I'm having fun with them. And then boom, I'm back in this room with myself again, and she just lays out more cards. And I realize that, I flip it over. I'm like, all right, we're going to play again, but it's the same question. And then the next one, same question. Like, she's not going to let me go till I answer this question. And again, I can't tell you what the question was. She blacked that out for me. But it was amazing because there came a point, I went into the Ibogaine with an intention. I wanted to know if something happened that I suspected happened when I was about 5 years old. I needed to get to the bottom of that because I sensed that was a cause of a lot of my issues. And at one point, I sat in front of her and I just said, look, I've been in this medicine for a long time now, and there's no concept of time, but I knew I can wake up anytime I really want to hammer on this issue. So can we just address the white elephant in the room and let's get on with it, right? Let's get it over with. I want to deal with it. And she just looked at me and she tilted her head very gently and laughed. And she said, oh, silly girl, we've already dealt with it and it's gone. And when I woke up the next day, I realized what I suspected happened did happen. I don't remember it. I don't need to. But it took it from being a bonded trauma stuck in there. It's like it lifted it out of that spot and it just set it over here into life experience. Okay. It happened.
Yeah. And you could look at it without the emotion and things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing. Yeah.
So it's different for
Yeah.
everybody. But even though it released me of all my traumas, it did cure the one physical ailment that I had, which was chronic insomnia that I have had forever. And I had received all the care from sleep medicine that I was ever going to get. Sleep meds weren't working anymore. Infections were mounting. Even in my bones, I had infections in my bones from not being able to sleep at night. And since that Ibogaine, I have slept beautifully, 7 solid hours, sometimes 8
Amazing.
solid hours a night ever since. So when you do Ibogaine, they describe it as like the sandblast of your brain. It's not painful. It's just, it's real medicine. Like
It's intense,
it does
though.
it. It's intense.
Yeah.
It is intense. It's hard on the body. It's intense. But after the next day, you have just basically a gray day where you're not doing nothing. You're just going to lay there. That's all you want to do. You're not sick.
Yeah.
You're just out.
Exhausted. Yeah.
Right. And then the following day, they give you what's called 5-MeO-DMT. And it's vaporized. You're not really smoking it, but it's a vapor that you inhale. And the psychedelic effects of that are very lovely, very beautiful, very heart-opening. But they only last, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. It's very short-lived, but they describe the Ibogaine as the sandblast and the 5-MeO is the fine polish. So that's the way they describe it, and that's the way I would describe it.
Which I've never done either, but I have heard people, I've heard actually people tell me that their 5-MeO-DMT experience was pretty intense, actually. So I wonder if it's the combination, right, of the Ibogaine first and then the DMT, because I've had people tell me that was, for them, it felt like they had died. Like it was like, I've had several people tell me it felt like they were going to die and then they didn't, and it helped them kind of really get over that fear. But it was the most intense and closest thing to feeling like they were going to die. And it's very intense and it's very short and brief. But so that's how I've heard it described. So when you say it's very like heart opening, I'm like, okay, I have not heard that before. So that's interesting.
Well, it was for me and it was for my husband.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the intensity that everybody else reported. That's a whole separate thing. Maybe I just didn't take enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't really need it.
Every experience is unique, right? So
yeah, it is. And it was just part of the program, so I went ahead and did it. I wanted to experience what my husband had experienced, because if he was going to go through all of these things, I wanted to understand. So whatever he was going to do, I was going to do. The MDMA, that's its own beast too. That again that's also listed as a psychedelic. But honestly, this is a drug that I believe if everyone on the planet just did this one time, the world would be best friends. Everyone. You can't hate anyone. It just dumps all of your serotonin in such a amazing way. You want to talk about heart opening, like you fall in love with anything, like your ink pen. It doesn't matter. You are just full of love. And it was used many years ago before it was outlawed as a marriage counseling drug. I can see why.
Yeah.
You know, and
I have done MDMA, so I agree with your description.
Right.
It can be. I agree. It's not like a classic psychedelic. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I know it's lumped in with psychedelics, but I feel that it's different as well. I do think that you have to be cautious with, like, I always want to preface these conversations. I know people who have become, I don't know if I want to say they're physically addicted, but addicted to the feeling
mentally
of MDMA.
Yeah.
And it can be destructive, just like anything else, And so, again, if you're going to explore any of these medicines that we're talking about today, I would highly recommend you do that with a trained professional and through a, clinical or therapeutic setting, because I know a lot of people also use, Molly. It's called Molly or ecstasy or MDMA, right? All the names.
Right. That's the street version. It's mixed with methamphetamines.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to just preface that for people listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So
Yeah,
the
go
vets
ahead.
program, the vets program did not supply us with any of that. The vets program was just the Ibogaine with the 5-MeO DMT.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sought out a reputable way to do the other two modalities, which were the
Right.
MDMA and the psilocybin. So them
Right.
all having their own benefits. My husband has received I would say complete healing and remission. You were there when he had his
I
psychedelic
was there.
experience,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it was
that was
pretty incredible.
pretty intense. I mean, that was
It
pretty
was.
intense, and he can't even really think about it without tearing up. So,
Mm.
and this is,
Mm.
months and months later. So
Yeah.
they all have their own part in the journey. Now, not everybody needs
Mm-hmm.
all four. I don't even really think I needed all four, but I'm glad I did them because I
Right.
feel like it hit everything from my ability to love, definitely to forgive,
Mm-hmm.
relationships that I thought were strained beyond repair. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel
Right.
closer to God. I feel like God, I
Yeah.
believe it or not, I do feel like God led us down this path. The way it all
Right.
came together, it felt like he was just give it a try.
Yeah, and I think
I
that's
just,
such an important point because, I also feel that way. I found God through psilocybin, which I think is some people's story, but I think there's so much miseducation and misinformation about psychedelics out there, especially in more conservative, Christian communities. And I think it's important that I've started to really lean into my faith and speak it, more directly because I do want potential clients and people out there that are struggling with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, trauma to know that not every experience has to be, there are experiences for everyone. Let's say that. So, if you want to go the group retreat route, more ceremonial, more of an indigenous type experience, that is great for some people, but for many people they feel turned off by that. And so
right,
I feel like there needs to be options to meet people where they are. So
right,
I love that,
right,
the vets organization is finally, and the veteran community in general. That's why there's so much bipartisan support for these, for more research with these psychedelics because we've just kind of scratched the surface when it comes to doing the research and understanding how they can be used in a more clinical therapeutic modality rather than, I think a lot of people think it's just a bunch of hippies wanting to get high and go out in the woods and commune with nature or what have you. And it's not that, right? It can be very different. So
right.
yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
with when you're a Christian, you already grapple with that. Is this is this okay? Is this
right.
something I should be doing? And it feels a little too witchy poo for me.
Mhm.
But the truth of the matter is, just like in Mexico, if you go to a psychedelic retreat in Mexico, they are going to have elements that support the indigenous mindset, the indigenous people's
Mhm.
mindset, with the shaking of the rattles and the sweat lodges and all of those
Mhm.
things that could be a real turnoff to Christians. But the reason
Mhm.
why they do that is because there's a psychedelic treaty with most of the planet that nobody's going to allow this. Mexico has that same prohibition against psychedelics, with the exception of spiritual practices
Right.
detailed, for not detailed, specifically for the indigenous populations. So
Right.
as long as they offer these modalities, these Reiki or yoga or whatever, then they're able to administer the medication legally.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
I would encourage Christians, like I didn't want to do all the Reiki and the yoga. I don't need that. I'm not summoning spirits from the great beyond. I'm not partaking in that, but you don't
Mhm.
need it. They just offer it. So
Right.
I would say any Christian that's concerned about that, don't be. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, and here in Oregon, Like I myself don't do any of that, right? So you can add things to your retreat experience with me, like yoga and sound baths and massage, but it's outside of the psilocybin experience. And so,
Right.
there are options out there for folks who don't feel comfortable going abroad and don't have the, capacity to go abroad. Oregon and Colorado are now two states that do offer legal psilocybin. And I know there are other states that are working. New Mexico's coming online later this year. And hopefully there'll be other states. I think it'll be very similar to cannabis. It'll go state by state and, we'll see
Right.
it. We'll see how that expands. But yeah, so going back to, the Ibogaine, DMT, then you guys did MDMA, very heart opening, so I'm curious. I know your personal experience with the psilocybin was not the norm, let's say, but how did that differ, for folks who are thinking about exploring psychedelics for themselves? Where would you say that they should start if they're not able to get into a program like the one that's offered through vets?
Well, definitely do it legally. I'm not an
Mm-hmm.
advocate at all for recreational drug use, but I
Yeah.
see a huge potential in therapeutic applications of
Mm-hmm.
psychedelics. And it's so powerful and so wonderful. And I have talked to hundreds of people. In fact, right now, I've gone through the process to become an ambassador for women's
That's right. Yeah.
integration, specifically for their Christian women, because they recognize that Christian women are their own breed. Like, they're hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to convince them sometimes. Not convince them. You don't want anyone to do drugs because they were convinced to. But
Right.
they're resistant to what
To open
they're
their mind a little bit to it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, yeah, I have talked to hundreds of women, and it's just really critical. It's really critical that Christians have Christians to talk to. In my case, the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I chose you as my facilitator was because you were a Christian. I didn't want the fluffity fluff experience. I
Right.
want to get into the medicine. I want proper integration from a Christian mindset. It's critical. That's if
Yeah.
you're Christian. If you're not, then, pick somebody who you feel comfortable with. The big thing that I would say is do it legally because, your buddy that did it with you is not the person who should be helping you with your integration. And for
Right.
those that don't understand what that means, when you come out of psilocybin, you feel like you're walking one foot in the spiritual world and one foot in the physical world. And you need to be able to come back from that
Right.
and
Reground. Yeah.
reground. And if you don't have somebody who really, truly understands the science behind it and the spiritual reality that you come out with, it could be maddening to somebody who's maybe not in the right state of mind when they go and take this dose. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know what dosage they should take, and maybe they overdo it. Maybe they don't. So I would say just do it legally. Do it legally.
Yeah.
Go through the integration. Don't skip the steps. It's critical. It really is.
The integration's the most important step in my
The
mind.
most
And
important.
yeah, and unfortunately I have had clients who never schedule their integration, and it always kind of just eats at me. Like it never leaves me. I'll just keep texting them. I'll text them 2 or 3 times like, "Hey, but you can't do it for them." And I would say the other thing, I love working with Christian clients. Not all my clients are Christian. I
Mhm.
don't push my belief system on people. That's not what I'm doing. But I love when I get Christian clients because then we can just very openly talk about our faith during integration, because for me, that's the biggest piece of the integration work, is helping
Right.
people to really lean in on their faith and to use their faith through the integration process, because a lot of my clients are dealing with some heavy stuff: depression, anxiety, trauma, like we talked about, suicidal thoughts. And this can be a life-saving modality, but there is still work to do. It's not magic, even though they're called magic mushrooms. It's not
No.
magic. And without doing the work afterwards, it can be a beautiful experience, but that is all it is. It doesn't actually help you heal. And I think most people are coming to this, or the ones that seek me out, are looking for true healing and true true transformation. And it takes time. It's not overnight. You have to do the work. You know, I have clients that come back and talk to me a year later and tell me they continue to have insights and see changes in themselves, you know, a year later because they're doing the work. And
Right.
that's the important step. Yeah.
Right.
So talk a little bit about the ambassador program with vets and what that means and how, like, if there are people out there that are wanting to, you know, do some research or maybe get involved or get into the program, how does that work?
So the ambassador program is just people that have been through it, people who have done the work, people who are learning as they go. They take on different roles. Now, that could be a fundraising role. It could be, in my
Mm-hmm.
case, I just really want to help the women,
Mm-hmm.
any woman. It doesn't have to be a Christian woman, but that's my specialty, is
Sure.
from a Christian perspective to help encourage women to drop the defense just enough to see the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Not to encourage anyone. I'll never do that. It's really important that women, especially believers, have their own level of discernment.
Oh,
But sometimes
100%.
they other voice of another believer that's been through it that can say, you're not going to fall off the Christian wagon because you took a
Right.
mushroom, right? You're
Right.
not going
Right.
to. You're going to have 4 hours. It could be beautiful. It could be scary. I can't make any promises, but I do know that good will come of it. And it always
Right.
does, no matter what the experience you have. So the ambassador program is just, it's all run by volunteers. My time is volunteered. Someone else's time is volunteered. And I'll help anybody with integration that needs it because I have a very deeply profound experience.
Mm-hmm.
Which is multifaceted, but the psilocybin being the most impactful that I can ever tell anybody. The vets program is that they understand that the women, if they have been living and caring for a man with temper or he's suicidal or just whatever self administering drugs and alcohol to self
Mm-hmm. To
medicate.
cope.
There's
Yeah.
coping doesn't have coping mechanisms that are healthy.
Right.
Usually they're pretty traumatized by their husbands. And it's
Of
not
course. Yeah.
intentional, and it's a slow boil. You don't always see it coming right away. Some of the women are physically and mentally abused. That's not always the case. So it wasn't the case with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my husband never raised a hand, but it was difficult to begin with. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
important that Christian women have the pre-treatment counseling to set their intentions. What do I
Yes.
want to go in with? I need forgiveness. My husband has traumatized me, or this has happened. I need to face this trauma, or whatever. A lot of times with certain psychedelics, you get in what you ask, what you take in. If you're
Mm-hmm.
terrified of the process and you're doing it begrudgingly, you're probably not going to have the best experience. If you go
No.
in expecting to meet a devil, you probably will. But if you
Yeah.
go in with intention and you calm your nervous system and you come to terms with what's going to happen, just let the medicine speak to you. You'll have a beautiful experience and there will be healing. And I can honestly say that the journey that my husband and I took was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
His healing, absolutely phenomenal. And zero outrages, zero impulse issues. We are
Amazing.
healed, absolutely
Yeah.
healed. And I just didn't think it was possible. So,
Yeah.
you know, it does take 2 in a
Amazing.
marriage. Well, it takes 3
It
in a
does.
marriage. We know that. But,
Right.
you
Yes, we
know,
know that. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
takes the husband and the wife doing the
Yeah.
work. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. And for the listeners, Michelle's husband, Ron, is going to join me for another episode. So you'll get to hear from both of them, which I think is really special. And I so appreciate you guys being open to doing this because, as we talked about, like, there's a lot of stigma and misinformation around, you know, around psychedelics and psilocybin specifically. And that's why I started the podcast. I want to show that there are many use cases, many different scenarios of why somebody might seek this out. And it's not, you know, if you grew up in my generation, we got a lot of, just say no to drugs and scary kind of stories about psychedelics kind of drilled into our heads. And so it's going to take a long time to demystify that and to break down those stigmas. And I think it's through seeing regular people, just normal, regular people who are dealing with life, sharing your story about your own personal experience with it is what will help turn this around and hopefully, help other people find their way to it, because there's a lot of healing that's needed, especially in this community, in the veteran community, as we talked about at the beginning of the show. So, yeah, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we,
Yeah,
end our
I
time
would
together?
just in case there's anybody listening that has the means to help the vets program.
Yes, thank
The
you.
work they're doing is phenomenal, and their care and the love they're putting into this is just off the charts. And, my husband right now is at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas, where it's one of the biggest shows that Vegas puts on every year. It's for military men and whatever, police, it's equipment and things like that. And it's a week long show, and he is there talking every day to people about vets, the vets program, and Ibogaine, because that's where the population needs it
saving
the
lives.
most.
Yeah.
And right now, because of documentaries like Waves in War, they've had an explosion. They're going to have to expand. They're going to have to expand to treat everybody that needs it, and anybody that can donate to that cause if they have the ability. Look it up. Do what you can, because we owe it to these veterans. We really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We really, really do.
And I'll definitely be sharing their information in the notes of the podcast and on, social media and all the things. So we'll definitely make sure that information is shared. And I appreciate you saying that. So I'm glad you did that. Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I really, again, thank you for sharing your story, sharing this information, getting it out there, and appreciate your time. And yeah, for all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And this is Michelle with Beyond the Dose, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.
Bye now.
Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Dose with Michelle Harrell. If today's episode moved you, share it, subscribe, and explore more at purplecityexperience.com. Until next time, stay open, stay grounded, and go beyond the dose.